Welcome to Biography Central. You are listening to Life of Sri Ramakrishna, a complete biography. Chapter 38, Baburam and Niranjan. Baburam Ghosh first met the master in a Hari Sabha in Calcutta, where the latter went to hear the chanting of the Bhagavata. Sometime before, he had heard from his elder brother about a monk in Dakshineshwar, who, like Sri Gauranga, lost all consciousness of the world while uttering the name of God. On being asked if he would like to see the sadhu, Baburam agreed. He was a classmate of Rakhl, who he knew used to visit Dakshineshwar. Next day, he asked his friend about the saint, and it was settled that on the following Saturday, they should go together to see him. On the appointed day, they set out by boat and were joined on the way by a friend named Ramdayal Chakravarti, who used to visit the master. Rakhl inquired of Baburam if he would like to stay for the night. Baburam thought they were going to a monk who lived in a hut, and replied, "Will there be accommodation for us?" Rakhl only said, "There may be." The question of food troubled Baburam, and he asked, "What shall we eat at night? There are shops there, I hope." Rakhl simply said, "We shall manage somehow." At sunset, they reached the temple. Baburam was fascinated with the beauty of the place. It looked like fairyland. They entered Sri Ramakrishna's room, but he was not there. Rakhl said to them, "He has gone to the Kali temple. Please wait here a little, and I shall call him." He hurried to the temple, and in a few minutes was seen leading Sri Ramakrishna by the hand. The master was in a state of God intoxication, and Rakhl was carefully directing his staggering footsteps, warning him of the high and low places. Reaching his room, he sat a while on the small bedstead, and presently regained normal consciousness. He inquired about the newcomer. Ramdayal introduced him. Sri Ramakrishna said, "Ah, you are a relative of Baburam. Then you're related to us also. Well, what is your native place?" "Baburam, Ampur, sir." Sri Ramakrishna, "Ah, then I must have visited it. Kali and Bulu of Jamapukar also hail from that place, don't they?" "Baburam, yes, sir. But how do you know them?" Sri Ramakrishna, "Why, they're sons of Ramprasad Mithra. When I was at Jamapukar, I used to go frequently to their house as well as to that of Digambar Mithra." Saying this, the master caught hold of Baburam's hand and said, "Come closer to the light. Let me see your face." In the dim light of an earthen lamp, he carefully studied the face. He was satisfied with the results of the examination, nodding his head in approbation. Then he examined the boy's arms and legs. Finally, he said, "Let me see your palm." He looked at it and placed it upon his own, as if to weigh it. Then he said, all right. Turning to Ramdayal, he said, "Do you know how Narain is?" I heard that he was a bit indisposed. Ramdayal, "I hear that he is well." Sri Ramakrishna, "He has not come here for a long time, and I feel a great longing to see him. Will you ask him to come here one day? You won't forget it?" Ramdayal, "I shall ask him positively." It was about 10 o'clock. Ramdayal had brought a large quantity of food for Sri Ramakrishna, who took only a part of it, arranging the rest to be distributed among the 3 devotees. Then the master asked them where they preferred to sleep, in his room or outside. Rakhl chose inside, but Baburam thought that his presence might disturb the meditation of the saint, so he and Ramdayal decided to sleep outside, though the master invited them to remain within. It was the month of April. The 2 devotees had hardly fallen asleep when they were roused by the cry of guards. Presently, Sri Ramakrishna approached them reeling like a drunkard, with his cloth under his arm. Addressing Ramdayal, he said, "Hello, are you asleep?" "No, sir," was the reply. Then the master said with great eagerness, "Please tell him to come." I felt as if somebody were wringing my heart like this, and he twisted his cloth. His every word and gesture expressed the unspeakable agony of heart at the separation from Narendranath. What love, Baburam thought. But how queer that he does not respond. Sri Ramakrishna proceeded a few steps towards his room. Then he returned and said to Ramdayal, "Then don't forget to tell him about it." He repeated these words and went back to his bed with staggering gait. About an hour after, he again appeared and unburdened his mind to Ramdayal. "Look here, he is very pure. I look upon him as the manifestation of Narayana and can't live without him. His absence is wringing my heart like this." And he again twisted his cloth. Then he said in bitter anguish, "I am being put on the rack, as it were, for his sake. Let him come here just once." This scene was repeated at hourly intervals throughout the night. When Baburam met Sri Ramakrishna the next morning, he found him quite a different man. There was no trace of anxiety on his face. He asked Baburam to walk around the Panchavati. Baburam was about 20 years of age, although he appeared to be much younger and very handsome. In his childhood, if anyone teased him about marriage, he would lisp, "Oh, I shall die then." At 8 years of age, his ideal was to lead a life of renunciation in a hut shut out from public view by a thick wall of trees, with a fellow monk. When he saw the Panchavati, he was surprised to find that it tallied exactly with his boyish dreams. How could he have foreshadowed the picture so accurately? He, however, kept this to himself and returned to Sri Ramakrishna. In response to a question as to how he liked the place, he only said it was nice. The master then asked him to visit the Kali temple, which he did. When he took his leave of Sri Ramakrishna, the latter affectionately asked him to come again. Baburam was greatly impressed. He is an exceptionally good man, he thought, and clearly loves Narain. But strange that Narain does not go to see him. The next Sunday, at 8 o'clock, he again came to Dakshineshwar. A few devotees were seated before the master. Sri Ramakrishna welcomed him and said, "It is nice that you have come. Go to the Panchavati, where they are having a picnic. And Narendra has come. Have a talk with him." At the Panchavati, Baburam found Rakul, who introduced him to Narendra and some other young devotees of the master, who had assembled there. From the beginning, Baburam was filled with admiration for Narendra. To look at him was to love him. Narendra was talking with his friends. Presently, he burst into a song which charmed Baburam. With bated breath, he listened, saying to himself, "Ah, how versatile he is!" Baburam began to associate closely with Sri Ramakrishna and soon surrendered himself at his feet forever. The master had a very high opinion of him. He knew him to be absolutely pure and classed him among the Nityasiddhas and the Ishwarakodis. In a vision, he saw Baburam as a goddess with a necklace. This gave him an inkling as to the personality of this disciple. It is a new vessel, and milk can be put into it without fear of turning. This was what he used to say of this boy. Owing to his absolute purity, Baburam was deemed a fit attendant for the master, who liked to have him about. He would often fall into samadhi when he touched the boy. His mother was a great devotee, and when Sri Ramakrishna asked her to leave her son in his care, she gave her ungrudging consent. Baburam was one of those fortunate souls whose touch the master could hear at the time of samadhi, and many were the occasions when he was found supporting Sri Ramakrishna in that state lest he should fall and be injured. The master from the very beginning treated him as his own, and took great pains to help him to realize God. Once the boy pressed him hard for the experience of bhava, that absorption in God, which is the maturity of devotion. Sri Ramakrishna prayed to the Divine Mother for this, but was told that Baburam would get the monistic experience, jnana, instead of bhava. This delighted the master. One day Hajra, in his characteristic way, was advising Baburam and some other young boys to ask of Sri Ramakrishna something tangible in the shape of powers, instead of, as was their wont, merely living a jolly life with him with plenty of good things to eat. Sri Ramakrishna, who was near, scented mischief-making, and calling Baburam to his side said, "Well, what can you ask? Isn't everything that I have yours already? Yes, everything I have earned in the shape of realizations is for the sake of you all. So get rid of the idea of begging, which alienates by creating distance. Rather, realize your kinship to me and gain the key to all that treasure." In 1,000 ways such as this, the master, like a watchful mother, trained the young souls under his care so that they might develop without selfishness. Another young devotee of extraordinary spirituality came to Sri Ramakrishna and found in him his ideal. It was Nitya Niranjan Ghosh, for shortness called Niranjan. He was 18 years of age and a medium for a group of spiritualists in Calcutta. He heard from people about the great spiritual power of Sri Ramakrishna, and one day came to Dakshineshwar to see him. As usual, a number of devotees were assembled to whom the master was talking. Towards evening, when the gathering had dispersed, he turned to Niranjan and asked all particulars about him. He spoke quite familiarly with the boy, as if he were an old acquaintance. Finally, he said, "My boy, if you think always of ghosts, you will become a ghost. And if you think of God, you will become God. Now, which do you prefer?" "Well, of course the latter," replied the boy. Then Sri Ramakrishna advised him to sever all connection with spiritualists, to which Niranjan agreed. As it was getting dark, the master invited him to spend the night at Dakshineshwar, rather than walk the long distance home. Niranjan said his uncle would be anxious, and took leave of the master, promising to come another day. The visit, though brief, profoundly impressed the boy. In the midst of his daily occupations, his mind flew often to Dakshineshwar. 2 or 3 days after, he went again. The master was filled with joy at seeing him, and embracing him warmly said, "Niranjan, my boy, the days are flying fast. When will you realize God? This life will be in vain if you do not realize him. When will you devote your mind wholly to God?" "Oh, how anxious I am for you." The boy was surprised. "A strange man this," he thought. "Why is he so anxious for my spiritual welfare?" He could not find an answer to the question, but the words of the master appealed to him more forcibly than any he had ever heard. He spent the night there and the 2 following days. When he returned home, his uncle, who had been extremely anxious about him, took him to task and put him under strict surveillance. Niranjan was much aggrieved at being debarred from visiting Dakshineshwar. But afterwards his uncle relented and gave him freedom to go to Dakshineshwar when he liked. In the course of a few days, Niranjan recognized his relationship with Sri Ramakrishna, and the latter took him as one of his own. His striking simplicity, his heroic scorn for the temptations of the world, and the innate purity of his nature made him highly beloved of the master, who found in him the marks of an Ishwarakoti. When pressed about marriage by his relatives, the boy told them that they simply wanted to bring him to ruin. Needless to say, the master was highly pleased to hear of this bold reply, and often praised Niranjan before others, saying, "He is a fortunate man who is not at all attached to the world. I see Niranjan seated on a ball of light. He does not care for anything in the world. When the call to leave it comes, he will do so without a moment's hesitation." Niranjan was of a violent temper and often resorted to drastic measures for the righting of wrongs. One day, on his way to Dakshineshwar in a country boat, some of his fellow passengers began to speak ill of Sri Ramakrishna. Niranjan at first strongly protested against this, but finding it had no effect, decided to teach them a lesson. He began to rock the boat violently, thundering out that he would drown them all in midstream for their misconduct. His robust frame and furious mood cowed the offenders. They apologized for their foolishness, which ended the matter. When Sri Ramakrishna heard of this incident, he rebuked Niranjan for his violent temper. "Anger is a deadly sin," he said, "and why should you be subject to it? The indignation of a good man is like a line drawn on water. It vanishes at once. Foolish people say all sorts of things. You should ignore them completely as beneath your notice. If, instead, you fight with them, you'll have to spend all your life doing that. Just fancy what harm you were about to do in the heat of the moment." At one time, Niranjan was compelled to accept a situation in an office. Sri Ramakrishna was grieved at the news and remarked, "I would not have been more pained had I heard of his death." A few days after, when he met Niranjan, he found that he had been compelled to accept the job in order to maintain his aged mother. With a sigh of relief, Sri Ramakrishna said, "Ah, then it is all right. It won't contaminate your mind. But I tell you, if you had done so for your own sake, I could not have touched you. Really, it was unthinkable that you could stoop to such humiliation. Didn't I know that my Niranjan had not the least trace of impurity in him?" Hearing this remark, one among the audience said to Sri Ramakrishna, "Sir, you're depreciating service in very strong terms. But how can one maintain one's family without earning money?" The master replied, "Let him who likes do so. I don't dissuade everyone. I say this only to these young aspirants who form a class by themselves. Niranjan, as we shall see, did not work long, for he soon dedicated himself entirely to the service of the Master. I hope you like this chapter. We need volunteers and sponsors to create content with even better quality and with more variety. If you wish to join this initiative as a volunteer or sponsor, please click the links given in description below. To help us reach more viewers, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Biography Central. Thank you for your time. It means a lot. Namaste.